So this article talks about Native Americans being disenrolled from their nation and their tribes and what that means. And as you can see, this article was from 2022. There's other articles and court records, tons of them since then, that talks about this. If we take a look at the United States Census, you will see a section right here that says U.S. Native American citizens and freedmen of the 5 civilized tribes. Now, what does this mean? This means that most people that think that there are no indigenous and civilized tribes and freedmen that live together and shared and live the same culture are sadly and severely mistaken. Even the government puts their records together, but for some reason, people think otherwise. Benjamin Johnson was my great-great-great-grandfather. This is what he looked like. Now, he was a freedman. We see that his record said he was a freedman, but I found his information in part of the 5 civilized tribes. Here are my family members. This is my second great-grandmother, Mahalia Johnson. As you can see, she is Creek by blood on here. And for those who can't read cursive, here is the print version at the National Archive, Creek by blood. Now, all of the Creek by blood were from North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, all of which my family hails from those areas. Native Americans are facing disenrollment right now as tribes. What do you think they'll classify them as? I don't think they'll classify them as white. If we look at 16,000 Cherokee Indians were taken from their homeland in Tennessee, Alabama, North Carolina, Georgia, to Oklahoma. However, the freedmen were here. They helped to free the United States. They fought in the Civil War. And then after they changed them from freedmen, they changed them to black U.S. colored troops. Later, they changed it to African American. So we can see the documentation and how things go. Earlier, I mentioned the 16,000 Cherokee, but the 16,000 Cherokee doesn't account for the 642,836 Oklahoma and Indian Territory natives. They don't account for the 388,204 Dawes File, Civilized File natives, or the U.S. Index Early Land natives, or the 100,657 U.S. Native Civilized Tribe and freedmen. Again, as I mentioned, this article only talks about 16,000 Cherokee natives, and I just showed you a chart full of people. In the article where they're disenrolling Native Americans, that they wanted to use a tool to disenroll our family. She told the news that Native Americans are known for their oral history. And when your grandparents say you are from a certain area, this is who you are. This is where you belong. You believe them. And having to find documentation is kind of demeaning. Imagine that. Having to prove where you come from is demeaning. Native Americans have a word-of-mouth history. Imagine never having to prove where you're from, then having to prove where you're from and being disenrolled. Oh, wait, I don't have to imagine that. My great-great-grandmother was Creek by blood, and by the time she died, she was listed as colored. When they disenroll Native Americans, what do you think they'll be classified as? They're not going to be classified as white. They'll most absolutely be classified as black. How do I know? Because I have the documentation to prove it. The record states so. We were native, freedmen. We were all on this list and we were documented. We're foundational indigenous America. They fought with their hands and freed this country themselves, made America what it is today. Black people also immigrated. You see, this is U.S. and Canada. There are slaves in Kentucky. There's also land records. And I understand a lot of people think the Civil War was 1865, and before then they were slaves. But more than 100 years before the Civil War, my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather is black and born in 1781. So if that's not foundational or indigenous, I don't know what is.